All right, welcome to episode 5 of the TruYou Unfiltered podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Pursley, where our podcast is a guide to navigating life's challenges and achieving holistic well-being. We offer insights on overcoming obstacles in emotional, spiritual, financial, and physical aspects. We simplify the process of skill development, helping you reach your goals. Additionally, we provide practical advice on balancing family life while pursuing growth in business, fitness, and mental well-being. Join us for value tips to enhance the various facets of your life's journey with our guest, Brian Alexander here. He has some unique experiences over the past of 20 years. Brian has excelled in various arenas, including a top 10% individual contributor at a Fortune 30 company. Starting his own business from ground up as an entrepreneur and coaching entrepreneurs to build sales teams and scale companies. His journey has shaped his ultimate passion for helping visionary leaders build, scale, and grow companies and team members. Brian has unlocked the code for success for himself and those around him, making it his life's work to share it around the world. He helps leaders build winning teams with a focus on creating a culture of self-awareness. And today we'll dive into key messages such as leadership, self-awareness, using failure as a catalyst to success, faith, and fasting. Additionally, we'll explore how assessments can be used to hire the right people for a role. So let's get into it, man. I wanted to call this episode the A-Team Formula for building the foundation for business expansion, the A-Team Formula building the foundation to business expansion. I had a past little intro there. That's so funny. We actually had a financial advisor that actually came on here. He quit Netflix and just dove right into his business, just head first. He was like a client of ours, and that was like on our episode 4, so it was really cool.
Nice.
But yeah, that's it was a good time there. But yeah, man, thank you for coming on here. I absolutely love what you're into. I've hired different agencies to help me out with virtual assistants, sales professionals, and then it's like how you do one thing is how you do everything a lot of the times. And just when we first connected with everything, I was like, dude, I gotta get this guy on here.
I like it. I'm excited to be on.
Yeah, man. So again, I went through a quick little intro, and I think what would be really cool is, just talk about more so around what really got you to start. I mean, obviously you crushed it in that Fortune 30 company, but I mean, there was things that there's always context to things building off of that. So I would love to kind of hear just about what got you to that point, and then to the point of getting on your own and what came with that, especially with the family and all that stuff.
Yeah. So, it goes back to the company was CDW, Fortune 30, big technology company. And I had just come out of entrepreneurship, actually, and had a pretty substantial, I would say, failure in business. I opened a restaurant and lounge with some friends, and unfortunately didn't vet my friends well enough, and they ended up not being good friends, and ended up not paying their taxes for the business, and everything went south from that experience. So I went from making good money, supporting myself, to having that restaurant entrepreneur venture fall apart. And a little betrayal, a little bit of me being blind to all of the red flags, and honestly, kind of attracted to the wrong people and the wrong lifestyle and what success looks like, cars, money, clothes, all of that. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise, in short, that it did go south. I actually lost my pants on it. But from it, I learned so much about coming back, right? So I ended up getting a corporate job. Really, it was like one of those, they put you in what they call a sales academy. You start at nothing, you smile and dial. They measure, you make 50 calls a day. You got to leave voicemails. All cold calling, right? It's wild.
No leads, no nothing from social media or nothing. Just straight up, boom.
They have,
crush it.
They have a system, and they have a bunch of accounts. They're called zero spend accounts. That means these companies spent $0 with CDW at the time. and there's not a whole lot of information on them, and you got to do the research. And this is back in 2006, maybe. But so I started there. I was absolutely horrendous. I was terrible at it. I hated the awkwardness of calling people that didn't want to talk to me. I wasn't used to working for somebody, period. I had come out of 5 years of my own business and entrepreneurship, and I didn't answer to anybody, and I, got to be as creative as I wanted to. So the first 6 months were really kind of like they were hell. They were terrible. I remember my wife, it was my girlfriend at the time. I'd come home every day and I'm like, man, this is not for me. Like, I can't do this. I got to figure something else out.
Kind of feeling funky inside, huh?
It was terrible. It was,
Yeah.
it was pretty bad, and I wasn't good at it. Right. But I didn't really have a growth mindset at the time either. So I just thought like people were just good at whatever they did, or had, they were just gifted in certain areas. Right. But what I learned from that experience was I started to take it a little bit more seriously. I kind of took it personally that, why is this bothering me so much? Why aren't I able to pick this up? Like, I'm pretty talented overall. I've always kind of been able to figure things out. And just little by little, I began really kind of focusing on it as like a craft, a skill that I could learn and that I could get better at. And little by little, I started doing better and better and better. And it ended up being like 2 years into the position, I was one of the top young rising people. And one of the biggest producers on my team ended up leaving the country. Like, it was just a random kind of thing. And so he left the company, and my manager rewarded me. And he put two of the youngest, up and comers together and rewarded us with his book of business, because he saw how hard we were working over the course of those 2 years. And from there, really I got to use more of my strengths, which is like big picture strategy, relationship building. So I went from nothing to, building myself to a decent, we call it a book of business, but then inheriting a massive book of business as a reward for our efforts, right, over the course of years. And that was a once in a lifetime opportunity. We went from maybe managing, I don't know, $500,000 to managing 2 million or 3 million, maybe, as a team. But we took that 3 million and we grew it to almost 40 million over the course of 5 years after that. So it was an amazing learning experience. I really kind of came into my own in that experience and learned quite a bit about myself. I was able to learn about what I did really well and what I didn't do well, which was amazing. And that was my first dive into like natural strengths. Like, what should I be spending 80% of my time on, and what should I begin outsourcing? And I remember right in the beginning of when we kind of started doing well, me and my partner invested $50,000 for our own executive admin. And we were still 2 years in, right? We were like brand new. But we just knew what we weren't good at. We're like, look, if we do this and we try to do this, and we're not very detail oriented, we're not good with like follow up, we're not good with, precision, crossing T's, dotting I's. If we keep growing like this and we don't do that well and we try to hold on to it, we're going to lose more than 50 grand. Like, the payoff was a no brainer, right? We're like, okay, well, we suck at this and we know we don't want to do it. So we're going to pay 50 grand. Everybody, all the older reps and our managers are like, no, it's too early. Don't do that. You guys just manage your business. But because we recognized that early, that's actually why we were able to build our book of business from, the 3 million to the 37 million that we were able to build it to. Had we never done that, we never would have got there. Right?
That reminds me of that story. Like, just real quick, like, you ever see that show Suits by chance?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Okay, so all right, so like I won't go too deep into it, but basically there's this guy. He's like the best closer. I'm trying to remember his actual name. Harvey. His name's Harvey. And in the show, he actually hires someone who's actually not even a lawyer, but has like crazy like. If he looks at something, he will remember it. If he just looks at a page on a book, he'll remember it. He passed the bar at Harvard. It didn't even go to Harvard.
Oh, wow.
He was helping people that were going to become lawyers. They would pay this guy to take the bar for him. He got
Wow.
caught in trouble, so he couldn't get an actual license.
Yep.
Anyways, Harvey Reid was I think that's his last name, Harvey, but we'll just call him Harvey. But anyways, he went to a really awesome law firm in Manhattan. They paid for a school and all these things, but he was built different. And this is where I'm
Yep.
getting at. And like he was built different. He was like the top closer, and he actually hired his own assistant. It's like his little Batman and Robin type of thing. And because of he paid her salary, everything, and he just took off and then became one of the managing partners of it all. But like that's kind of like what I'm just hearing from like what your kind of experiences in general, just on you have your partner and you're trying to get just people below you to help really grow this thing because you see the opportunity. I mean, with your partner, man, you know earlier you said about like restaurants. You started with your restaurant and just didn't pan out so well. Totally get failures like that. I've definitely had a couple myself.
Yep.
You know, because you recognize the red flags you talked about earlier, like the blind red flags, you know, what did this hire look like for you? Because you all were starting to grow pretty quickly. You made actually 2 hires pretty quickly. Only it's more of like a partnership type of deal, right? Where you have someone who's going in with an assistant, but then you're also hiring the assistant, right? What did that
Yeah.
look like? I mean, why were you like, dude, this guy's the guy to go with me on this, and this person's the person to help support us? You know, like, what about
You
that?
know, it was actually a little different of a scenario where they actually took myself and my partner because we were 2 of the rising up and comers. We actually started at the same time and we were competing against each other
Okay.
in the sales academy.
Yeah.
And management, once that guy left, they just felt like, look, I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. I'm just going to team these 2 up instead of having one that could potentially
Oh,
leave,
you were
right?
just stuck with it. You have no choice.
That was completely luck, and I
Okay.
got very lucky with him. We both had similar personalities, but
Mm.
he was really good at certain things. I was really good at other things. The one thing we weren't good at was details, and it was glaringly clear, and we recognized both of us because he had a landscaping business before CDW, so we both had entrepreneurship experience, and we both realized like, look, we can't be doing the stuff that bogs us down, and even if we could do it well, like we shouldn't be doing that. You know, that's not how we're going to grow. That's not how we're going to build this book of business by us doing the detailed work. That's easy to offload and outsource and delegate to a executive admin who, by the way, could do it 10 times better than us, even if we tried, right? So that was a very good lesson. But, you know, we just knew, you know, executive admin, good with details. I didn't really know about the personality assessments just yet. I just knew I shouldn't be doing it. He knew he shouldn't be doing it. And we found an executive admin. The title was a clue that she had an idea of how to keep things organized. But at that time, it was like anybody's more organized than we are. We were relationship people. We were strategy people, right? And we combined our forces from that perspective. So that was one of the big lessons that I pulled from that era of my life. And the other era was, or not even era, I'd say the other lesson of that era was burn the ships.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know if I've talked to you about that, but everyone maybe might have their own story of burn the ships. But we recognized like we had like 200 accounts at the time when we got all of this guy's accounts. We had our own accounts, and most people, you know, in the company were like, well, the more accounts, the better, because I'm going to have more opportunity. But we really recognized early that, look, you're going to only grow what you focus on. So let's prune this. Let's call it a little bit. Let's look at all of the accounts we have. Let's stack rank them by size of opportunity. And really, that's all we did, size of opportunity. And we ended up going from 200 accounts and willingly giving away, we dwindled it down to 50 at first. So that was our big burn the ships moment. I remember I wrote my sales manager a big email, and you know, I kind of told the story of burning the ships. I'm like, look, if we can just focus on these 40 or 50 accounts and hyper focus on them, we're going to do way better than if we try to spread ourselves over 200. So we found the best opportunities, the biggest accounts. Maybe they didn't spend any money with us yet, but we knew based on our research that if they did, they could be a $10 million company or $15 million account for us. And that's another thing that paid off. We did that the first time down to 40 or 50, then down to 25. Eventually, we got down to 10 accounts. So the strategy really worked. And again, I don't think we would have grown to the point we grew to it had we been focused on 200 different accounts. We really kept it narrow. And every day we just woke up and we hit the pavement because we knew exactly what we were working towards. We had all 10 accounts on our whiteboard, key contacts. And it was just, when you focus like that, you can't help but win. You can't help but succeed.
I love that too, because so right now I'm like in the marketing coaching world ish, and
Yep.
I've always talked about how, if you could just land like your top five, like just 5 accounts or 10 accounts, and just, you said relationships, you're big with relationships, and it's like, man, if I could just focus, instead of having 100 clients or 50 clients, I've had that route before and having to do all the ads and all that stuff for them. It's like a headache. It's crazy. Like, I mean, even from like the operation stuff, it's just more to manage.
Yep.
And yeah, like the cool part about nowadays, you have all these paid media. You can track things, you put more in your control, and then you can literally come up with a lot more strategy and ideas with that, whether it's the CEO or like the marketing manager or whatever. It's crazy because I had a jiu-jitsu competition last weekend. I was coming on my way back from Tennessee, and I made this post just out of nowhere, and I was like, what would be a crazy business opportunity with nowadays, like in today's like market world, with you're seeing like a lot of low ticket things being marketed online, whether there's a free book, a $27 thing, and there's a real opportunity, I feel like, with people who are like hungry and up and coming in itself. And just hearing you talk, there's things I'm resonating along the way with that in itself, and I think it's really cool. How old were you around that time? Just like, because it was 2006, it's 2024 now. You said it was like that era.
Yep.
You recognize that when?
So that era, I was like 24, and that lasted. I worked there for about 7 years.
Okay. Dang.
But a big
Okay.
transformative time of my life. Like I was a shell of the man and human being I was prior to that experience, and then at the end of that experience, I was just somebody completely different that I never imagined I would be. So it was a very positive thing. Ended up going back into entrepreneurship, actually, as a result of pretty poor leadership over there.
Okay.
I guess there was many lessons I learned there, but I also learned how not to lead people and how not to break bad news to people, especially if you're in leadership. And it was a comp plan change, and we were making a ton of money. And the director came from a different vertical of CDW. He'd been there 20 years, so he was kind of like this dinosaur of a individual that was with CDW when they were still dialing phone book numbers instead of computers. And so he had that big mentality that we were just lucky, and we were privileged, and all of that, right? And I
Right.
remember we heard about the comp plan changes coming. We all knew it was coming, and it wasn't so much about the comp plan change, but I remember it was how he delivered it that really kind of set me off. And at the time, I was still pretty young. Maybe I jumped the gun a little bit, but I have no regrets. He pulled me and my partner into the room. This was after we've been pretty successful after 7 years or so.
There's some
And
data behind it.
there was data, yeah. And that book didn't build itself. Like, we built that book, you know what I mean? Of 3 million to almost 40 million. It's like we have
Insane.
we have a leg to stand on in our value. But comp changes are comp changes, and a Fortune 30 company, I'm sorry, you don't matter at all. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to stop it. But he set us in the room, and he took me and my partner, Josh was his name. I proposed to my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and he proposed to his girlfriend, who's now his wife. So we're both engaged to our soon-to-be wives. Pulled us into the office. He said, "Look, I know you guys are engaged. You're about to buy houses. You're gonna have babies." He's like, "You make a lot of money. If you make less, you're still not gonna go anywhere. Like, where else are you gonna go to make this kind of money?" He's like, "I know you're not gonna go anywhere. So, like, let's stop the the BS basically. And I was like, wow, that is that really rubbed me the wrong way.
Very
And
unprofessional.
I wouldn't say I was a great leader. Actually, at the time in my life, I didn't really believe in leaders and managers, right? I'm like, well, managers are just people that couldn't do the job themselves and be successful in the role themselves, right? Because our sales managers were always kind of mediocre salespeople. Because when you're doing well there, you're making 300, 500, 700 in sales. Then you go into management, you might be making 200, maybe 300 at tops. I didn't quite understand why people would get into leadership at that time. I just looked at money as success overall, and it was a ranking of success. So
Scoreboard.
scoreboard, I didn't quite, but I knew bad leadership, and I was like, well, that is a terrible way to do this. So I ended up deciding. I had already opened up a CrossFit gym at the time with my wife. It's kind of like a hobby. It was a huge passion of mine at the time. And we opened it up a couple years before that. So it was really kind of growing and coming into its own. I remember I'd wake up at 3:30 a.m. I'd work out at 4:30. I'd coach the 5:30 a.m. class. Then I'd go home, shower, take the train to CDW downtown Chicago. And then I'd come back, take the train back, and coach the 6:30 and 7:30 class. And I'd be home by
Beast.
9, and I'd do it all again. I did that for 2 years straight, and it was beating the hell out of me. But there was
I'd say less, like
yeah,
100%.
but there was so much passion in the CrossFit gym, and it growing and watching it just go from like this tiny little gym to a huge gym, which we can get into. But so I decided, I'm like, look, I'm leaving. I'm going to leave this company. I'm just going to run my gyms and go all in on myself. And everybody there was like, what are you doing? Like, you're crazy. Like, it's a little CrossFit gym. You're making a ton of money here. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to leave. And, that was kind of part of my younger, youthful ego. But it did teach me that, there's no amount of money that should be the golden handcuff to stop you from doing what you should be doing, or maybe from doing the right thing. If you're miserable somewhere, leave. Like, don't make everybody around you toxic, or don't be toxic to everybody around you. Leave and do something else. Like, you have complete freedom to be able to do that. And so I did. And we ended up going all in on the gym, and that went incredibly well. Again, it's kind of like that focus thing. When you're focusing on CDW and growing your gym, you're doing pretty well, decently for two things. But ultimately, when you put all your energy and mindset and effort into one thing, it's going to flourish. And that's what happened with the CrossFit gyms.
That's beautiful. So that would be like your, what, second business in between 7 years? Give or
Yeah,
take
yeah.
two, if we think
Yep.
about it.
And it was
So,
kind of scary because I still had like my battle scars from failing in the first business venture, and it was a hefty amount of money. And I had now a wife who was counting on me, and I'm leaving this crazy paying job to follow my dreams and
yeah.
in gym ownership space. Right? It was a scary leap. I never felt fear from it. I'm sure my wife did, but I was just lit up by passion at the time.
I mean, I find that normal too. Like, I mean, on my end, like my wife's actually in like the pharmacy area. She's like a manager out there, a trainer, with like enclosed pharmacy. But she's always had
Okay.
that 9 to 5, and that's like we had a conversation. I mean, heck, it was like I think like actually, yeah, last night it was crazy about how um just the transitions over time. We're expecting another little one coming soon, and
Yeah.
it's like it was about that time to have that conversation. Okay, like, you know, what's next, game planning, things of that nature. And I kind of sense that even on that end, just little like tells, right? They'll tell you without telling you. And
Yep.
but I'm happy to do it though. Like, and I'm sure you are as well. Like, actions speak louder than words. So 7 years of just figuring stuff out too. I mean, you're probably trying to figure out how to have your relationship with your wife, or in this case, you're engaged at this time. There's a lot of self awareness with you, man. Did you always have the self awareness? That's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. Is like, where did self
No.
awareness kind of come into play? I get in sales. I started in sales. Um, Maybe not as advanced as you, but I sold shoes and tech at Best Buy. Like, that's what I started out with. Then I found digital marketing. That's been a thing for a while, but yeah, man, like, where did all that self-awareness come from, you think?
I think when I was younger, I wasn't like super confident. I didn't have a growth mindset. Um, I kind of was like a chameleon. I just kind of like adapted to whatever I thought people would want me to be like. And then I'd look at other people and try to emulate them and everything. But I think the self-awareness came after I bet everything on that restaurant and lounge. And by betting everything on that restaurant and lounge, by the way, I bet everything on that group of friends too. So when that went south, in the way that it did, it
Yeah.
kind of it it shattered everything I understood about. I thought I was a good person. I didn't understand how bad things like that could happen to good people, and then how the bad people can come out on top, essentially, right? And that put me into a pretty massive kind of depression for a while, um, prior to the whole CDW experience. I was a nightclub promoter, and you can imagine the lifestyle that goes along with that. But I was
Yeah.
even successful at being a nightclub promoter. It was just we figured it out, right? We figured out a system. It was crazy, but it was a terrible lifestyle. But kind of being introspective and just wondering, like, man, how did I get that wrong? Like, I never want to do that again. I want to make sure that I never make that mistake again. What do I have to do to make sure I don't make that mistake again? And a lot of it was introspection and realizing, like, even if they were not so great of human beings and morally flexible and all of that, I'm the one that missed the red flags. You know what I mean? I'm the one that chose to go into business with them. So in that perspective, I was like, you know, I can blame them all I want. That just led me down a path of like misery, right? And depression and, kind of like apathy and, nihilism and everything. And that, that wasn't a life I wanted. That wasn't who I was, right? I
I
knew that.
resonate with this so hard, man.
Really?
Like, extreme ownership, dude. Oh, bro, I'll humble myself real quick. And after I go about this, I think this would be a really cool idea to, like, I'm gonna show you, like, just we're about the Colby stuff and the predictive index inside of things. I know the cool part about this. We can share our screens. I can show you my results and all that stuff.
Yep.
And I feel like if I knew this information prior, that what I'm about to tell you, I feel like I could have dodged. And I like what you said about the battle scars. There's a guy I've introduced you to Blake, but Dr. Jeff Spencer's been like the guy that talks about just things along the lines of like trying to have as less battle scars as you can. He's in the performance world and whatnot. And but yeah, like this is I have a financial marketing company where we focus on financial advisors, life insurance brokers. These people have huge teams, and
Mm.
they sell fixed indexed annuities a lot of the times, and or just helping high net worth people, manage their money accordingly, depending on the person, right? Because you can only do so much stuff as a life insurance broker. If you're wanting to really go in on it, you have to be like an advisor, a fiduciary to give financial advice. And so, context, like, my grandparents just didn't prepare effectively for retirement, and I saw that. I wanted to learn more about how money worked. I also had the skill set of marketing. Wanted to dive into that a little bit and just talk to these guys and see how I can get them customers and low key learn something about something, right?
Yeah.
And get them in the right way. But anyways, yeah. So what happened was we were starting to hit our $1 million run rates for the very first time ever in a company for the past I think within 2 or 3 years in. And bro, we were yeah. So I think it was like 85K a month, give or take, maybe 50 around this time. Just bear with me on that. But dude, we had to
Yeah.
refund 30 grand within a week or
Oh,
2 weeks.
wow.
Yes. Two very important things we had to improve on was customer service. I remember a client, we had a late Zoom. I shouldn't have met with this client this time too either. Like nothing. Like, I mean, we thought we took care of it because everything we departed well, but then he woke up the next day and like just went, I hate to say it, like bipolar or whatever, and just changed his mind. And
Wow.
then we're like, oh man, now we're in a rut. Basically, like my team was not informing my clients at the end of the
Oh
day.
wow.
And he left me with a good piece of information. It's not what you're saying, it's about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so that was one part of it. Even when I stepped in to do this stuff, I found out later that my product needed improvement as well. We weren't hitting what they needed. So like customer service and product were the bane of my existence. And it's kind of beautiful because like I flew out to Michigan to meet with some advisors, financial advisors, to one try to pitch this product. I don't know what I was thinking because I knew my product needed to be improved upon.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I connected with a guy that did believe in what I was doing, and he helped me improve that product as well. And then we fixed the product, and then we were able to obviously improve customer service from that.
Right.
But like I said, you said earlier, you've ignored red flags.
Mhm.
And you kept on going a little bit, and at the same time, um, you said earlier you had battle scars going into your next business from that experience. And I know how that feels because I thought I had a team that had my back.
Yeah.
And I thought I had a product that was good. And I'm like, man, am I even like good at this thing or whatever? I just need to ask for help. Not even fine with that. And I was just
Right.
too proud to do it, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to admit you got
Yeah.
it wrong for sure.
Yeah, man. And so like I feel like I'm more that relationships type of person, and I help a lot on the front end at the same time. But I did not take this thing called the Kobe test. I did not take this thing called the predictive index. In fact, I didn't even invest into a alignment coach or anything like this until after this stuff happened.
Yep.
Like, and I lost my, like you said, you lost your pants. I lost my
Yep.
pants, and that
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
stuff happened. I remember I called my wife. I was like, man, like, I just need you to come home. Just need you to come home. I need a hug, like, or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. Like, I remember just sitting on my bed, and the next day I had client meetings, and I had to lean onto my partner, bro,
Yeah.
to be sure he could help me lead this meeting. Cause like, oh, dude. Anyways, I resonate with what you're saying a lot, and that is so true. So everyone who's listening, like what he's about to share, this stuff we're gonna go into, I really hope you take action on something applies to this so we can minimize those battle scars. Like this is real talk here. So, but yeah, while I'm bringing that up, man, like talk to them about just the Colby index, the predictive index, maybe even how you got into that at the same time, and we can knock two birds out with one stone.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where the story gets more exciting, if you can imagine that. So I had a successful gym. We grew from like 1,600 square feet all the way to 17,000 square feet over a couple years, hundreds of members, great culture, all of that stuff. And I was a business coach for other gyms, teaching them, systems, processes for a company called Two Brain Business. They're kind of like an entrepreneurial operating system for gyms, right? And it was mentoring. So I had been doing even that for about 4 years, during the whole gym ownership thing. And I had a really good friend who was a coach. He had a full-time job that he didn't like at all. And he really wanted to just go all in on coaching. And he's kind of like one of those guys that's like the mayor of everywhere he goes, really nice guy overall. Um, but there was some interesting red flags there as well. And, I wanted to be the guy who kind of like helped in a way. So we kind of worked it out where I decided like, okay, well, I'm going to open a second gym and we're going to go, all in on this second gym, nice neighborhood, all the fun stuff, right out of the gates. We're not going to build it from this small gym. Organically, we're just going to plop this gym down. And I have all the systems, processes. I understand how to get people in the door. Um, and it ended up being, we had a 5-month delay in our build out over a shower and a village kind of, basically approving something. It was one of the worst villages, really nice neighborhood, but worst villages to, get approvals for
Oh,
with
okay.
permits and things like that.
Oh, okay. That makes
The
sense now.
problem was we took on a lot of debt to kick it off, and then because of a 5 month delay going on 6, we only had a 2 month runway to get it up. So now we have gym number 1 going. Gym number 2 is fully done, but we can't open because the village wouldn't approve the permits. So now 2 months free of rent is gone. Month 3 right away, 10K in rent. Month 4, 10K in rent. We did a founders club where we had 50 founding members ready to go by the end of month 2 to begin paying, right? When we had to begin paying. And because of the delay, that 50 people dwindled to 40 and then 30 and then 20 and then all the way down to like 3 people by the time we finally opened.
Man, those are the OGs right there.
Oh geez, but man, it
Uh,
it it was like deja vu, right? I'm like, oh my God. I literally took something amazing and now gym number 2's bleeding, gym number 1 dry. I'm back to like, being a little depressed, making a massive mistake again. And it was one of those introspective moments where I'm like, how did this happen? And that's when I started getting into Colby and predictive index. It was that issue that was one part of it, but it was also picking the wrong person for that. I wanted it more for them than they wanted it for themselves, and they had no skin in the game. So it was all my money tied up. He was going to be, he was going to be the guy that grew the place and was the mayor of the place and all of that. But he had no skin in the game. So I had gotten it wrong again with people. And I'm like, what is going on? And that's when I really started looking in the mirror. And I'm like, okay, well, and I even saw it with the gyms I was mentoring, right? They'd hire somebody, they'd have high expectations, and never it never failed that person would not work out or not pan out or not live up to the expectations of the gym owner. And I just kept, banging my head against the wall. I'm like, how do we not make these mistakes? Like, how do we just hire the right people for the roles right away? I thought he was going to rise to the occasion. He actually just shrank in the adversity, right? And I didn't have I didn't have what he needed, and he didn't have what I needed. But we should have known that before we got into business,
going
right?
into it, right?
Um, but that experience showed us that we didn't have what each of us needed. It was probably more similar to, and he didn't ever take the assessment, but we were probably too similar, right? And he said all the right things. He said he'd do the work, the details, manage it, but at the end of the day, he wasn't wired for it. And that's what really got me into the Colby assessment at the time. That was the first assessment I ever took. When I took it, I showed it to my whole team. I told all like 300 gyms that we were mentoring. I'm like, you guys, I found like the missing link. I found the key that you all are missing. And it's interesting because it feels like that to you, but
Yes.
everybody else, until they go through pain, they just look at it as another thing or tool.
Yeah.
But if you felt the pain of hiring somebody wrong or getting it wrong or getting a relationship wrong ever, and you have this in front of you, it is the missing link. It's the dot that connects everything. So it connected the dot for me. I gave it to my wife. I'm like, look, this is saying who I am better than I could ever tell you who I am. I always felt guilty about being a visionary and not into details and not really super organized like other people. The gym mentor owner, he was the godfather of the gym mentoring. He was a very analytical, organized guy. And I was always benchmarking myself against him, right? But I was wired nothing like him. And the reason why he built the business he built was because he was literally all about systems and processes for his own gym. I was never about that. I built it, organically, relationships, and it all worked. And then I put systems in afterwards.
Yeah.
But he was that. That was him. That was like the ethos of everything he was. And I was trying to be like him. And the more I tried to be like him, the worse I became. It was crazy. And I didn't understand it until I saw the Colby Index. I'm like, oh, I read a book called
This.
Rocket Fuel, most amazing book in the world, talks about a visionary and an integrator. First in command, second in command. Every company needs both. And I was like, I'm trying to be the integrator. And I'm kind of competent at it. I'm proficient at it,
Yeah.
but I can't keep it up for a long time. And I'm miserable. It drains me. It's not what I'm here to do. And so the Colby and the Rocket Fuel book, they're actually kind of in tandem in a way. It just changed my outlook on everything that I ever knew about people and myself.
You know, yourself, that's what I was gonna say, is like, did you have any flashbacks to your 3:30 a.m. gym CrossFit days, like in
Yeah.
that time? Because I mean, you were implementing too and going to that job, and you said you did it for 2 years,
Yeah.
right? And that was like a perfect, like, were you thinking about those times or what? Like,
I was thinking about those times, but that's just grit, right?
you're
That's
like, dude,
just
that's why I was freaking tired, man.
tired. That was grit. That's what it took to
Yeah.
stand it up. But what I was more thinking about was, how I was operating my gym. And I went from, I created this amazing business out of my strengths. And then I basically kind of morphed over time into trying to emulate somebody who I was not. And that kind of takes away all of the, I don't like the word magic, but all of like the uniqueness of how you've built it. And it really did cause some damage. I started treating employees differently, and it just wasn't authentic to me. It worked for that guy, but not for me. And there's principles, right? So there's general principles, and then there's how you do things, right? Like the general principles anybody can follow, and that's good. But telling somebody how to do something exactly, you're only right probably about, maybe if you're lucky, you're only right 30% of the time if you tell somebody how to do something. If you tell them the end result and say, find your own way to do it, that's probably the next best way. The best way to do it is understand how that person's wired and then give them some guidance based on how they're wired and how they might go about doing it to accomplish it with more instruction and direction, giving them freedom to be themselves. So it's kind of like those 3 stages, and it was just mind blowing to me. It was like the whole world opened up, and I was just blown away. It's I can't even put it any other way than from that point on, I didn't see life the same. I didn't see myself the same or people the same. And honestly, like life, it got better because of it. My relationships got better. I believe this stuff is really like a bridge to kind of empathy and self-awareness, even compassion for others. You can't, expect.
That's so good.
Yeah, you can't treat people the
Yes.
way you want to be treated. Even my own employees at the gym, I would kind of just treat them the way I would want to be treated. Everybody in a blanket approach, right? And it was not right for everybody. I go back to the 30%. It might have been right for 30% of the people. In fact, usually you like the people that are most wired like you. You get along with them better. The other
Yeah.
people who are opposites and wired differently, they're kind of there's friction a little bit, and you have to learn to appreciate and work with that. They're not there to halt your plans. They're not there to either hit the brake pedal on your ideas. And on the flip side of things, they're not there just to throw thousands of ideas on the whiteboard and make you figure it out. But without objective data, you're really just guessing. It's just like you're flying blind, and a lot of your feelings get in the way, right? But when you take feelings out, you add objective data that you can agree on. That if you've read your Colby and I've read my Colby and we both agree, wow, this is definitely me, then you can have a nice, a better conversation around how do we work better together. Then if we're both wired this way, if you're opposite of me, how do we best work together? And the first person I started with was exactly with my wife.
I'm gonna do that too when I get off here. I'm gonna be like, listen, wife, take the Colby.
I
I
honestly,
I feel that, like, that's so good because like it's like our dynamic is kind of like she's really good at the household, the family type of things, and I'm like good at the business, the money side of things. It's that's like So good. And I see and we have conversations about that, but for you to even bring it into your family first and seeing how that kind of worked, that's beautiful. Cause I'll see your post even online too, man, of how you parent and all that stuff too. And it's really cool to see in itself. I know I've commented on that maybe once or twice,
Yeah,
on a
yeah,
couple of conversations we had. It's beautiful. But another thing that was really cool as well, it's the objective thinking, taking the emotion out of it too. Cause I mean, with, you said you're more of a visionary and
yep.
whatnot.
Every
I always,
subject.
is it fair to say salespeople are emotional animals?
I think
Like,
you can probably
you don't have
make
to
a
agree, but it's
you
just,
can
yeah.
make a
So
generalization.
yeah,
Now, all sales aren't the same either.
yeah,
There's hunters, there's long-term relationship kind of we call them farmers. Um, they're not all the same, but yeah, I think they're a little more emotional. There's a little more EQ. I think it's you have to have a little more EQ, but I think so.
sure,
And even entrepreneurs, if we gave this test to entrepreneurs, they're not all the same, but there's probably a good majority that are similar. Just like if you gave it to engineers,
okay,
they're probably all pretty similar. There's not going to be massive outliers, maybe a few,
okay,
um, not statistically relevant. So you can make
yeah,
generalizations like that. I think what I realized about my wife was I kind of threw her into the office general manager role because she was a little bit more organized than me, but I didn't realize that, I was basically delegating my hell to her. Um, it was my day-to-day stuff I didn't want to do. I throw it on her because she is more organized, not like crazy on the other side of the fence, but um, I basically made her miserable by doing that, right? And it was just there was so many mistakes that could have been avoided with myself, my family, my employees, partnerships, advice we gave our clients, coaching gyms. It really just it brought everything together. It's okay, well, instead of just doing all the systems and processes and playbooks and crossing the T's and dotting the I's, what if we just start looking at what if we just hire the right who for the work, and then I don't have to worry about teaching them how. I don't know how to do half of this stuff anyway. I just want to,
I love that.
you know.
Yeah, yeah. Because there'll be some stuff that will just simply hold a company up just because we're waiting on something to get done, and I get that. Another thing that I like what you said too is so something I was experimenting with is just fully automating, well, not fully well, I guess you'd call it. I brought it on a new admin virtual assistant to do project management and client support, and I have a 14-step process of here's what you need, here are the things that you need to go through to be fully prepared. But I think the missing link to that is what you were saying. You were saying with you have three different levels, and how here's the end, here's the end result of how to get here, figure it out. But it was the third. What was the third one again? You said it so beautifully, and I don't want to take it away from you.
So the third one is basically not giving them your way and saying, okay, here's the end result, and here's how you're wired. Here's some ways that you might get this accomplished based on your unique gifts, because
Yes.
you might be decent at it based on how you're wired, and you can kind of get, if you're a visionary like me, you can get things 80% of the way there, and that's your gift. The last 20%, you could do it, but that's not your strength. There's people that
Right.
last 20% is their strength. So, it's like a point guard trying to tell a center how to do their job on a day-to-day basis. It's
Yeah.
really, you know a thing or two about basketball, but have you ever played center? Are you wired for center? What do you know about
Are you
playing
built like a center, dude?
like a center? And I use that analogy all the time, like starting lineup of a basketball team. We all have unique attributes that allow us to, or basketball players have unique attributes that allow them to play their position well. But what happens if you pull the point guard, shooting guard, power forward, small forward, center onto the bench, point guard at center, you put the shooting guard at power forward and throw them back onto the court. They're all playing basketball, all playing the game that they love, but now all of a sudden, they're going to work every day getting beat up. They're very ineffective in their job. Fans are upset. The coach is upset. And a lot of that just comes down to like the wrong, you're playing the wrong position, right? And in basketball, it's obvious because there's physical attributes, but in life and in work, that's not obvious. It's all like the underlying operating system that nobody sees unless you have objective data. So instead of you telling that VA exactly how to do it, you can give them a little bit more autonomy to say, here's the end result. Can you come up with a few ways that you would do this? Document it all so I have it. And I have an executive VA as well. And we use this for hiring with an executive VA firm. And it's just unbelievable how much stuff gets done and done way better than I could have ever imagined me doing it. Number one, I would never get it done. There we go.
There we go. Yeah, it lagged there for a second. We're good. We're back. We're here. We're here. You said you never get it done, and then
look, as a visionary entrepreneur, there's probably 100 things at any given time that you could think of that have to get done.
Right.
And then for you to spend time thinking of how it has to get done and then doing it, you're really probably only going to complete like 10% of that at all, right? And you still have to do all of the other things that you have to do. But if you can just learn to delegate to the right people and have confidence that it is the right person, that you need a point guard and you have a point guard, and I can just throw the point guard work to the point guard, they're going to blow your mind at how they do things and what they come back to you with, because you're not wired like a point guard. Like it's crazy for you to think you could teach a point guard how to play point guard if you're not a point guard.
Yes. Oh, that's so powerful, man. I love that. That's my nugget for this time. We're good. That's the pot. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. So I guess like I pulled up the Colby stuff and whatnot and the predictive index. Are any of these are any of these something that you should take first or before the other? They just kind of both, here's this and this, or are they like this?
They're like this.
Okay.
They're different. Now there's 3 parts of the mind. There's the affective part of the mind. That is feelings, emotions, drives. There's the cognitive part of the mind. That's kind of like IQ, processing power. And then Colby is the conative part of the mind. That's how we solve problems while free to be ourselves. While we're striving, right? It's not like in leisure, but it's while we're striving to solve a problem and we're allowed to do it our way. That's what the Colby measures. Now, nobody has a Colby assessment, anything like the conative, right? Colby is exclusive. The affective part of the mind, there's 800 assessments, or there's a ton of them, right? DISC and Myers-Briggs and Enneagram. And they're all good, right? They all have their unique nuggets in them that you can pull from it. The reason why I use predictive index is because it's stable over time. It's scientifically validated for hiring. And out of those 800 assessments, there's only like a handful that are scientifically validated to be used for hiring. So that means the results are predictable and repeatable over time. They stay stable over time.
Okay.
Colby is very stable over time as well. There's a 30-year ongoing study where the participants over the 30 years test and retest. And the results are 95% consistent over those 30 years for the test subjects. So if you're going to use any data, I would recommend using data that won't change. It's kind of who you've always been and who you will always be. The other assessments are good, but they're snapshots in time. They're measuring different slivers of the mind, of the affective part of the mind. And you could take a DISC assessment today and then next month, and you're probably going to get a little different result depending on if you're hungry or cranky or if you didn't sleep well. So a lot of the stuff I do is around hiring. So I use Colby and predictive index pretty exclusively because those are like the cream of the crop for that. But they do measure something very differently.
I love that. All right, so let's figure out how. It's like I'll show my results, and like you could just freestyle. How would I build the master team? It could be for anything that any type of company you can make up, whatever it is, no matter what. Just I have lots of screenshots from the Colby one, from the predictive index. I do have like 2 images.
Okay.
I think this will be a fun little thing. So, what business should we pretend to go for first before
You
I
know,
show you the results?
it all depends, right? And you can't really pin it down to making it generic either.
Okay, fair enough.
Because it depends on the strategy that you're pursuing. You have to identify that. You start with yourself though, and you build your team around yourself. So we can talk a lot about scenarios for sure once we get it up and running.
That's fun. That's good. That's perfect. And I'm glad that you said that you couldn't do generic, because as I was kind of like coming out with it, I was like, people run a business based off their lifestyle a lot of times, or something that they're very passionate about. So maybe I give you a hard one. I mean, that'd be very hard
Yeah.
to
Well,
do.
there's different stages, there's different phases of businesses, lifestyle businesses versus like, look, we're building this to sell in 5 years for a 10x multiplier, and anything in between. I work with a digital marketing company for done for you marketing for gyms, Facebook ads,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And
dude. Yeah,
it's two guys. They have a small team. They're former gym owners, and we were former gym business coaches right together. And they've been my clients since 2020. They've grown it to a ridiculous amount, but it's still a lifestyle business. They don't want their lives to get extraordinarily complicated by hiring a bunch of people, but they're taking home a very significant amount of money for themselves while protecting their family life, right? And it's like, okay, we're here. Do you want to 2x or 5x it? Because if you do, there might be a scenario where you're not necessarily taking much more home, but you're pouring it back,
I've
reinvesting.
heard a lot that. I mean, yeah, that's very common in that industry too. And like, I mean, now I know about Alex Hormozy and Gym Launch, and they've done some crazy things themselves. Um, but like, I know with like you were saying, the digital marketing agency, I know like there's a cap to that one offer, one result
Yeah.
type of model.
Yeah.
Um,
And if you're building it to sell for a multiplier, that's a different story. But
oh, true.
you kind of got to choose. Like, the strategy is going to be different. The team you're going to build around it is going to be different.
I don't have a
So
lot of experience in that area of like building it to sell. Like, it's like I've had a couple of agencies. I've been able to exit a couple of them in terms of like, here's how much I own. Business partner buy me out, and that's it.
mhm.
That's interesting. Definitely a good thing to talk about.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So like, I took it for the very first time. This was probably right before 2024. I mean, like literally, it was like this was probably like what, February, give or take. I don't
Okay.
even remember. Jeez, it's been, time flies. But yeah, so like these are like the end results. Now, I'm just gonna go back to my screen, but I'll just I won't go through any, like, or not any, but all of them. I know there's a lot of screenshots, like I was saying. Let me just go back just to kind of give you a proper, like, I'm not gonna have you read everything. I made sure I purposely did this,
Yeah.
so don't worry. I'm not gonna like. You can just tell me when to stop and what you think would be helpful, um, and I'll just kind of go at just cherry pick or whatever your thoughts are.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, so the nice thing about what you have there, your results is what I mean, is
yeah.
that it's stable over time, right? That's who you are. It's who you've always been. It's very indicative of how you naturally solve problems while you're free to be yourself. And again, there's nothing like it out there on the market in terms of something that measures that and something that measures it as accurately, which is
Crazy. I mean, like, you have so many bullet points for each one, and just like, it's like I like to get information. Like, this was pretty interesting too. Like the whole explain side of things. Like, yeah, I have this really cool Kobe test I just found out. Let me tell you all about it.
right.
Or and it's like, um, seeing, yeah, literally creating just different instructions. I mean, it just goes on. I could keep going and going and going, but like
Yeah,
anything.
you can actually stop at the blue one because
Sure.
that's where you initiate your problem solving. You systemize and organize, and you design systems. So this is where it gets interesting, right? Because do you remember what your PI was by any chance? Was it a promoter?
Wait, say it again.
Your predictive index. I'll look it up
Oh,
really
I
quick.
have it right here. No, you're good. You're good, man. I can prepare, bro.
I like it.
I got you. I got you. I'm a maverick.
Maverick.
And can you see it? Let me zoom in if you need it. Oh my gosh. Hopefully that helps. I can
Let's
go
see.
to I have this, and then I have one more. I have like this stuff down here.
So
Sorry.
this is why it's so important that you don't just look at one assessment either, because again, when we look at predictive index, for example, you're looking at motivating drives and then needs and behaviors you can predict that are associated with those drives. Now, I'm a Maverick too, but I'm actually a 4 on this blue. So I'm actually accommodating, they call it follow through. Follow through is a difficult word. It's not actually, um, it's not the best word to use, but it's their science, right? But it's how you systemize and organize things. You begin by designing systems and organizing everything first, and then you move to ideas and brainstorming. I'm the exact opposite, actually. I actually start with ideas and brainstorming, and then I actually move to vetting it by doing research. Then I go to finding a plug and play system that I can drop it into because I'm a 4 in follow through. You're a 7, so you have a bigger propensity to try and build your own systems, to organize things yourself. I'm somebody who finds a framework and I just solve a problem by plugging an entire system into it. So you can get into the weeds a lot more. You can be more organized in that fashion. But it's funny because when you look at your PI, that's not something you would get by just knowing that you're a maverick, right?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. No, that's really on point. Like literally, I was telling you about it the other day, or I mean, on this call, like right now, it's like literally we were talking about like onboarding. I created like literally one document. I was like, all right, I'm tired of like just not having some type of organized fashion to give
Yeah.
to someone to be like, yo, this is what you do it, and then report back when you're done, like, and we'll just mastermind it together.
Yeah. So now that I know this about you, it's not a terrible way to start. Now you can give that VA, if you also know this about her or him, a little autonomy to say, here's a good first draft. Here's how I think it should be done. This is a proven way to do it. But if you come up with a better iteration, let's A/B test it. Let's put them side by side and talk about it because you don't want to you don't want to rob people of the opportunity to also use their gifts. You know what I mean? So it's one
That's
of those things when
yeah,
you, well, you want to make sure that you're, even if you can do it and you're wired for it like you are in this perspective from a Colby perspective, you want to make people feel like they're vested in their work and building and doing what needs to be done. And if you're just kind of like dictating the orders down, sometimes they're a little less engaged from it. I'll give you an idea of, we do for our sales team, we do little dinners at steakhouses and we invite, high level executives to go. And I have a small 1099 team that helps me with that. If I tell them where and when to do it, they wouldn't have as much interest in building that whole dinner event out. But if they get to research the area and they get to pick the place, they're going to be a lot more vested in getting people over there and taking ownership of either the success or failure because I've given them the autonomy to use their gifts and be able to, exercise their gifts a little bit more. And because it's their idea, now they take full ownership, whether it does well or not. It's on them. So I could do it for them, but I'm kind of robbing them of the excitement of being able to do something, right?
yeah. No, and so it's so crazy because like we talk about self awareness and stuff like that. Like even like I'm thinking about calls and stuff like that. Like literally with my team, we have like a weekly all hands on deck type of thing, and I'm seeing it, bro. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing where you're going with it. It's awesome.
Yeah, the hardest thing for a leader to do is not not say what you think the team should do or what the person should do. It's really like, even if you know the answer, it's to ask them what do they think we should do, right? And you'll be surprised at what they do come up with. And if it's way off, it's way off. You can correct them or talk through it. Maybe they're seeing something you don't see, but you always want to, you know, the older you get, the more seasoned of a leader you become. the more you realize that it's less about telling people what to do, and it's really kind of getting them to tell themselves what to do.
Yeah, a word came to mind is like empowerment. That's kind of like what I was thinking. I
Yeah.
guess for the most part, that's where I would love to be for sure. Cool. So now we have the green. You modify. So what I got from this, from a lot of it is that I would take a system and a process, and I'm not worried too worried about perfection to a degree. I will run that system and just that's how I'll fix it.
Yep. Yeah. So your appetite for risk and uncertainty in this 6. Now the 6 is exponentially higher than a 5, is exponentially higher than a 4, and then your 1 through 3 are that top quadrant. 1 through 3 is like hitting the brakes, right? Hitting the brakes for new ideas. They need more information all the time. They're very slow. There's really no sense of urgency. On the flip side, if you're a 7 through a 10, you have a huge sense of urgency and you're just an idea machine. But a 6 is kind of like, we call it accommodating. It says you modify, but you can kind of tailor to both people, brakes and gas, and kind of live in both worlds, right? But quick start is it's a kind of like not really a overall creativity thing, but the people who are 7 through 10, they're just idea machines. Like you can put them in a room all day with whiteboards just to come up with business ideas, and they'd be great. If you put a 2 in a room to do that, they'd be miserable because they're just thinking about like, how is this even gonna like work? Like what about the plan? Like we don't, you know what I mean? You can pay them 500 grand a year for a 1 in quick start to sit in a room full of whiteboards and come up with business ideas, and they would quit no matter how much you paid them because it's just a miserable
They're
experience.
like, yeah, wow, yeah,
But they're needed, right? Because
yes,
all gas is bad and all brakes is bad. Sometimes visionary leaders need to be slowed down and say, great idea. A lot of the times, the 7 through 10s, they'll have a great idea today. Their staff will just start implementing it. And the next day, they're like, what about this project? And the visionary is like, oh, no, I was just thinking through things, right? They're like, well, we already started on it. Like, what are you talking about?
yeah. Then they get pissed because then they're like, bro, what do you
Yeah.
mean? Like,
And so visionaries run into a lot of
uh,
problems with their team members because they come across sometimes, if they're how would you say it, if they're unrefined, they come across as like just bottling lightning, like complete chaos, right? There's a genius in that chaos, and if you do refine it, it could be amazing, especially when paired with the right team members. And this is where we can kind of get into building teams.
yeah,
um, you want people who see the world a little bit differently than you do. You want diversity on your team. Of course, diversity from a background perspective is important, but also diversity of thought, right? You can't have people who all think and act the same. You're not going to build a great team or a great company by doing that. You need to learn to leverage each other's strengths, and you're going to get the most traction in your business by being able to team up with somebody who brings something in an opposite fashion to the table. You might see it kind of as friction in the beginning because you would just hope they would just do it the way you want to do it. But once you learn to begin working together and understand each other's strengths and what they bring to the table, that other perspective is massive in either breaking through plateaus or avoiding catastrophic failures, right? It goes both ways.
beautiful, beautiful. And I know exactly what you're saying too, because I'll bring on like, I'm like, okay, like let me get a new salesperson on, and like we're actually onboarding one right now, and it's like I gave him the framework, right? The onboard, the same thing of how I'm doing that thing for the admin. I have literally a process for that, and he's so good at creating relationships and whatnot. Very fantastic guy. He's actually a celebrity barber. He's like cut like Money Mayweather's team's hair just to kind of like put
Oh,
that in
wow.
perspective. It's kind of funny too because Mayweather don't have no hair, but his
Yeah,
team
yeah.
does. so like so anyways, yeah. So now we're kind of getting him up to speed on things. And it's like, when you said friction, man, it's like, I think of the whole alignment thing when it's like, I don't want to force nothing, but this is just part of the process and that's okay.
Yeah. The work that needs to be done needs to be done. How somebody does it, the more you know about this, the more you'll realize, um, just give them the end result. Of course, when you're training somebody, it's a little bit differently, but this gives you a little bit of empathy if you know how they're wired, right? Because they might be a 3 in the blue follow through, and they adapt, right? They just wing it. They find shortcuts for everything. That's a gift, right? It's not, to you as a 7. It might be like, what are you doing? That's not the way to do it. But that is their gift. There are no weaknesses in Kobe, right? Everything is a gift, whether it's a low or a high number. And it's difficult to even recommend anything unless you know how that person's wired. And that's why this stuff is so important. Right now, most business owners and leaders guess. They subjectively guess. They assume. They might look at the behaviors of somebody and kind of guess at what they might need. But without the objective data, you have no idea. You're kind of just, rolling the dice, hoping you get it right. And the percentage that I shared earlier is really accurate. You might be right for about 30% of the people when you tell somebody how to do something in a specific fashion, because they can do it, but the question is, will they do it over a long period of time and well? And this goes for Colby and predictive index. I always use this rubber band that I always carry around, but your Colby result or your predictive index result, really human behavior, it's like a rubber band, right?
Okay.
How you're wired is like this rubber band in its natural state. It doesn't take any energy or effort to keep this in the shape that it is. Now, we can be and do anything, but the question is for how well and how long. We can stretch in natural and unnatural ways, right? But it's always going to be under constant tension, energy, and effort. And the minute you let off, it snaps back to its natural state. So you think about that for your team members and for yourself. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should be doing it, and it doesn't mean you can do it well over a long period of time, unless it's in line with how you're wired.
Beautiful. Because like and just to kind of like envision that real quick, it's like I'm giving them the step-by-step process, and that's kind of me stretching them. That's kind of what I see, and correct me
Maybe,
if I'm to a degree.
maybe,
That is,
or it might be exactly what they need, but you don't know. Some
yeah.
people love clarity; they don't look at it as micromanagement. Other people look at that clarity that you're giving them in your mind as micromanagement, right? But they're wired differently, so their lens of the world, their perspective is different, right? So you don't know if it's good or not. You're just it's good to have some structure, right?
Yes.
For sure. You're not going to just say, "Hey, come on in and just see what happens," right? Like, figure it out, right? But giving them a little more autonomy, maybe to improve it, iterate it, change it. But I always recommend, if you're hiring anybody, at least do that $40 Colby, and you'll know a lot more about that individual than you ever would have imagined. And you're going to be able to lead that person so much better, and they'll appreciate you more because you're going to see their unique gift. Just like when you read your Colby and you're like, wow, this is really me.
Dude, what?
You're going to
Yeah.
know that. You're going to
Yeah.
know that about every team member. So for $40 on Colby website, not having that info is insane. It's the easiest way to get an instruction manual on somebody.
Beautiful. No, that helps out a ton, man. I think we're on the last one. I think we're on the last one. I want to be sure we're.
Yeah, no worries. So it's the yellow.
I think so. Yeah, yeah. Let me. Oh
It's
crap.
called implementer.
Let me
Um,
see real quick. My bad. Go
there
ahead.
we go.
Yep, implementer. You are on the money. Obviously,
Yeah,
you're certified in this. You know.
yeah. It's so how we handle space intangibles. The 1 through 3, we visualize in our head. So you can work out solutions in your head without ever seeing it come together in real life and know it kind of works, right? You might hear about Tesla.
Okay.
Tesla was somebody who really worked out solutions in his head fully, to a point where he worked out all the details, all the difficulties, and he was able to then bring it into real life, right? Faster, because he wasn't just tinkering with it in real life, he was tinkering with everything in his head first. That's kind of like what that looks like, right? It's the people that are higher, the 7 through 10s, they begin their problem solving by physically building solutions and getting their physical hands dirty. And they actually need that in order to begin their problem solving. My wife is a 6, and when it comes to solving problems of building furniture and stuff like that, she crushes it, right? I'm not a physically talented individual. That's not how I solve problems, but I solve a lot of our life's problems in my head, right? I'm a little bit more of a strategist from that perspective. So a little bit of difference there. People that work with their hands are higher in that yellow 6 through 10 all the way down. Even when you see it with working with kids, the parents that like to do crafts with their kids, they're probably a higher yellow versus like a lower yellow. And
Oh, bro, that's my wife. That's it.
yeah, and it's not just a girl thing, right? It's not like
Yeah.
a versus girl thing.
Right.
It's actually, this has something to do with that. And I do a lot on the business side, right? But we
Yeah.
also do family coaching, and the data is the data, right? And the problem, it doesn't matter what the problem is. If you have the data, you can easily solve the problem. And I talk to wives and moms all the time. It's like, don't feel as guilty because you're not as crafty and doing crafts with your kids all the time. If you're like a 2 or 3 in implementer in the yellow bar, because it's just not how you're wired. It doesn't give you energy. It drains you. It doesn't mean you don't love your kids. Of course, do it with them to a point, but don't compare yourself to the moms that are doing the crafts for like 4 hours long, and they're building these amazing things and the kids are loving it. You're going to show your love differently. And, this isn't about love and how you show it, but in that instance, it is, because it comes down to physical touch, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my. Yes. 100%.
And it's just a weird thing.
Like
Different.
the people that are at the very top of it. I mean, like for the set, what, 7 through 10?
7 through 10.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. So all of those together, my man, you're able to kind of get some data together and kind of pretty much figure out what, like, and in the business world at least, you're able to find out more so how someone can perform, but then with that performance can help out with like roles and placement. You would say,
because
what else am I missing?
the magic of what we do is creating a behavioral job target for the role, and then we screen every individual against that target to see how well they align with it, right? We say performance problems are predictable, and if you can predict them, you can prevent them. And it all has to do with how the person's wired versus what the job requires from a behavioral perspective. So whether we're using Colby or predictive index, it's very easy to predict if somebody's going to be successful in that role over a long period of time, specifically based on how they're wired versus the role, the job target, right? That's why businesses pay big dollars for this, because the cost of getting it wrong is really expensive. You have to re-recruit, re-interview, re-onboard, retrain. If somebody leaves, the entire team, including the owner, usually has to jump back into, and kind of, everyone has to chip in to fill the gap while that person's gone until somebody new is hired. And that ruins all of their own productivity and happiness. So getting it wrong is really expensive, whether it's real money or time, or a combination of both. I always tell business owners, look, if you can put the cost of turnover as a line item on your P&L, you would take it a lot more seriously, instead of just saying, oh, I just need a hot body in the seat, right? Especially in sales. Sales is notorious for putting people through the ringer. And, it's kind of like the Hunger Games of sort. Whoever lasts, they're meant to be here, but everybody else, they're just going to churn and they're going to burn out. And that's fine. We're going to accept the 80% turnover rate. But it really doesn't have to be that way if you change your perspective
always thought that would be a limiting belief. Like I felt like just simply saying that, oh, it's sales, it's gonna have a high turnover, and statistically maybe that's true,
Yep.
but I think like that's said so lightly just across the board.
Yeah.
Like
And
with especially with sales, like that's where I started, it's where you
yeah.
started. Um, I mean, heck, I was selling this in just retail, just simple sale. Like it's different, but like I mean, I was selling for multiple years at the same spot.
Yeah.
So it's just
And
like,
it works.
yeah.
Usually what we want to do is we want to look for a rock star in the role,
Mm,
in a sale, especially in sales, but any role really.
right.
Sales is
But
very
sales was
easy.
fantastic to go off of. I think that'd be, yeah.
Yeah. And then so we use that person as a benchmark, right? And we use that one data point in addition to the job target to inform us like what's working well. Could this person be better? What would be different? And then if you want 10 Kyles, I can pretty much produce 10 Kyles, right? If Kyle's the rock star. And for a company to be able to scale, that's how you do it, right? It's not by just hiring 10 different people and spending all the time training them. It's like for me, in sales specifically, you can't build capacity on top of dysfunction, right? So it doesn't matter how good your sales training is. If they're not wired for the role, you're going to churn 8 out of every 10 anyway. You're wasting so much energy on those other 8 that you could be pouring into the 2 people that do stay. But now what happens if you get 8 out of 10 right instead of 2 out of 10, right? That's an incredible driver for growth for a business. And
Yeah.
it's all about data. It's you can't ignore the data. We use data for everything, but when it comes to people, we literally just wing it. Luckily, the assessments, the scientifically validated ones, they've been around for a very long time, and smart companies do use them, especially after getting it wrong. Right? Once you've gotten it wrong too many times, you look in the mirror and say, "Okay, I need help." Right? And
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I
so,
know the feeling. Yeah.
and that's
Exact.
human nature. Human nature.
So, so even like, you know, I like to look at things from the business side and the family side too. It's like, you know, how does it apply to, let's say, parenting? You think?
Yeah.
How would you apply that there? Because like I also see like people who are seeing this podcast, a lot of entrepreneurs and athletes come into this too. And I know you have some nutritional background with fasting and health yourself as well. We'll get to that maybe here in a second. But like, um, how does it apply to, let's say, a parenting style with your, when you're handling kids and with people that are entrepreneurs, athletes seeing this, they're having to maybe go back and forth in between it. I don't think there's a lot of like a life balance, but it's like you look at, there's a lot of similarities in between it, and I don't know why. That's just how I perceive it. So, loaded question. The main
Yeah.
thing is, how does finding, let's say, the right the right way to go after handling, let's say, a child that needs to be disciplined in one way versus another. I'm about to have a boy, bro. I have a daughter who's 2. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, and now I'm about to have a boy. Like, that's 2 different facets, right? Like,
That's two facets for sure, and that's just like the facet of male female, which is one dynamic. Um, but God gives us the Russian roulette of personalities too, right? Which is a
yes,
blessing. And so the way we use it, I'm a Colby youth specialist as well,
okay,
and we homeschool, right? So my wife is a full time homeschool mom, runs the household, and my wife is wired differently than my 9-year old who we homeschool, and very differently than my 6-year old. So they're all very different, and very different than me. Now, my oldest, Mia, she's 9. She's wired a little bit more like me, high in quick start, actually higher in implementer, but low in follow through, and then right in the middle of fact finder. So she kind of distills things, bullet points them out, doesn't need a lot of info. But my wife learned a lot actually through this all because she was teaching Mia, my oldest, in the way that she understands it, in the way she wants to be taught. and how she would kind of best learn it, right? And Mia's is kind of like, she's very creative. She's moving around all the time. She has a ton of ideas. She abruptly stops things and she'll just do circles and come back, sit down and do something. And it would drive my wife nuts. But once we were able to get the objective data, it really tells you, like, look, there's nothing wrong with her. Like, you're trying to force her to be you. And I know it's harder for you to teach somebody that's different than you, but you're not going to make her, our daughter, any better by treating her the way you would want to be treated in school. It just doesn't work. That's not how she learns. It's not how she absorbs things. You have to approach it from, who am I working with? Even my two daughters, very different. My youngest daughter is very analytical, very organized, high in blue. She's the one that like has her shoes put together by the door.
Yeah.
Me and my daughter Mia's shoes are just thrown at the end and the side, right? And a lot of that's predictable as well. So, but because we know this about our daughters, we're not expecting Mia to be Emma. Emma's like just ridiculously intelligent, analytical. She had the advantage of being younger and seeing an older sister as well. But there's something more there. So for us to expect Mia to be more like Emma or Emma more like Mia, you wouldn't be doing your children a service at all. You'd be doing them harm. And in school, it's different. Like homeschooling, we actually were blessed to be able to do it, number one. But number two, we can teach them the way they need to be taught differently, right? Whether it's the speed of what we're teaching or how we're teaching subjects uniquely individually. But in school, it's kind of like this box, right? And school was designed by people who are in the box for people who are in the box. And usually that ends up being a high red, high blue, and then low, oops,
You're good.
I know that little. So high red and high blue. Teachers are mostly high red and high blue. There's a ton of studies done on this with Colby. And then usually their teachers are low green and then also low yellow. So high red, high blue, low green, low yellow. So teachers like students who are most wired like them, high blue, high red, right? Low green, low yellow. The people that really cause havoc for them are the ones that are wired in the opposite fashion.
That makes a lot of sense.
And
Yes.
some of it's behavioral, right? Some of it's like family environment and all of that. But a lot of it is actually the underlying operating system, right? The school system was designed by a certain type for a certain type. The people that are a certain type and the children that are a certain type excel in that box. But then the ones that aren't wired for it, they're thrown on like Ritalin and all of the pharmaceutical drugs just to bring them back into the
Dude.
box.
Oh, that's so powerful. Like I was telling my wife, right, it's in pharmacy and includes
Yep.
pharmacy and like yeah, like there'll be kids coming in there and it's she does a lot of addiction recovery,
Okay.
so it comes with the territory, I would say. Like, moms have many kids at once and they have their own condition, just like kind of what you put out there just now. And it's like,
Yep.
I mean, bro, just put them in sports, you'd be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or whatever. I mean, it's just like just you get my point. And that's so impactful right there. And so, everyone has that goal they want to reach, and they have to ready, aim, and climb with you, right? That's how it goes.
Yeah, that's right. But first you have to ready and you got to measure, right? You got to figure
Okay.
out, measure, figure out where we want to go, aim, measure, do these assessments, create a business plan, don't let's measure twice and cut once. Let's not just jump the gun and then you climb. But knowing about your kids and how they're wired important, knowing how your wife is wired is important, knowing how you're wired is the most important, and then knowing how all the people you interact with from a professional working perspective, very important. Like once you see this stuff, you can't unsee it. And if you're working with anybody in any kind of professional perspective or relationship perspective, having this is such a bridge builder. It's unbelievable.
I'm gonna say you sent me a couple links off your website, and so like guys, if like this is something like an assessment you want to take. I mean, he sent me a quick link for the predictive index. I'm just gonna share my screen just real fast. I think this is your website, right? Right here. give or take. I could be wrong. I think
That's it. No, yeah. Yep.
yeah, yeah, there he is. There he is, the man, the myth, the legend. So, guys, I found the predictive index here. You all can take a look on his website, Ready, Aim, Climb. You can literally Google it. I literally did it earlier, and I was like, boom, it's right at the top. And he has predictive index stuff. You can take an assessment, and are you able to receive some of these assessments and are you able to like reach
Yep.
out, or how does that process work? I know they can schedule a call.
Yeah, yeah. So as
What's
soon
your
as
typical
somebody
process?
goes on my site and clicks on the link to take the assessment, it comes into my PI dashboard. So I have your email address. I'll send you a 5-page report kit. It's pretty in depth. Like you're going to be blown away. The assessment takes 5 minutes, but the depth of the report that you get back is insane. So you can take that on your own and read it. If you want more help, you can jump on a call with me and we can kind of do a little bit of coaching direction on, okay, well, where in your life do you think you could be more efficient or improve, or where are you having challenges with other people and relationships? And we can solve a lot of those problems with some of these assessments.
Heck yeah, I love it. Relationships are everything, so make sure you definitely connect with him on LinkedIn as well.
Yep.
That's a whole process as well. I definitely appreciate that on
Yeah.
that front as well. And I tell you what, man, thank you for taking the time. Like,
Of
this is
course.
so powerful and whatnot. I definitely need to have you back on again and get into. There's just so much stuff you can only cover in so much time, but I definitely want to respect the time that you've given me to be on here today. And guys, like, this guy's a force to be reckoned with. Like, I've learned so much from him just with our few conversations, and I really can't wait to see what the future holds for this guy. So make sure you take a look at his website, take that predictive index, the Colby test. I mean, I shouted from the top of my lungs, bro, when I found out about it. I was like a freaking little cheerleader, just oh my god, like yes, yes, dude, Brian, you know about Colby? Like what
Yeah.
you do too? Like it's funny, like in jujitsu, people see my like little funky ears. And they're like, bro, do you train? Like I train too, bro. That's how
Yeah.
it
Yeah. Yeah.
felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, guys. So Brian, is there any other last words you want to kind of just say to the audience, or anything? Any last thoughts or anything like that?
So my favorite saying is, life is full of suffering, but a lot of the suffering is self-induced, self-inflicted, and a lot of it comes down to not knowing who you are and making concessions for who you are, making bad decisions. So if you can just understand more about how you're wired, about really how God uniquely granted you specific gifts to bring out into the world, to work with other people, to collaborate. You would be blown away once you start diving into that. It's kind of like God's unique fingerprint on you. Just like Kyle has a different Colby, but we have the same predictive index result pretty much. There's so many other aspects of you that make you unique. I told my little 9-year-old that she was asking me about our little assessments here, and I'm like, look, no two people are alike, just like no two snowflakes are alike. Everybody is unique, and God made us that way. So you should be proud of all of the differences, but you should also appreciate that God made other people uniquely different, so you can work with them and get to understand how different people do things. Because you can't just do it by yourself. You gotta be able to work with other people, whether it's your wife or your kids or your team or your boss or your direct reports. Understanding more about yourself is going to undoubtedly help you understand other people.
Fire. Learn, adapt, execute, overcome, baby. Thank you so much, brother. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you.